The following is a preview of a Patreon exclusive.
With that, give me your thoughts on 2022. You kind of started on it, but maybe if there's
Yeah.
anything you want to add, otherwise I'll kind of work in mine here in just a second.
Yeah, holy crap, it was a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we finally reached the point where, and it may have been about mid-year, I think you and I finally may have had this realization, like, there are no breaks. I mean, there's something, even when there's a break in content, like on Disney Plus or whatever, we're behind on books, and so we always have to, when we pick the books up, and the way that we like doing the books takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of shows to do that, right? And
Right.
it was just, there was always something to cram out, which is fantastic, because when we look at a few years ago, oh my gosh, it was a slog, right? It was tough to come up with content about, okay, what are we going to talk about this time? We're going to get really creative. And, sometimes that's a great thing, but it was really cool to just have that much, though. And to really have so many really good pieces of content in so many different arenas, whether it was High Republic, whether it was Disney Plus series, or, whatever it may have been. Some of the comics were really, really good. You just had this great, just smattering of content. It was really cool.
Yeah.
It wasn't without its pain points. I mean,
Sure.
I think 2022 and going into 2023, we still see it. The delays in publishing continue to plague the industry and I mean, not just Star Wars, but everywhere.
Yeah.
Books, comics, everything's delayed. Everything's a mess as far as when it's going to come out. It messes with the timelines and the release schedules and how we're supposed to enjoy the content or learn about the content. So, it's not without its challenges, but it was just it was a lot. It was just a lot. And I'm impressed we got through as much as we did, actually.
Yeah, I mean, their sacrifices were made along the way. Unfortunately, thankfully we got Lauren here now to kind of help pick some of that, do some of the heavy lifting on that. So that's been good. Yeah, it's so weird too, because I mean, we had COVID, and we're not going to. I don't want to rehash everything that happened in COVID, but that was just a weird time because movies were put on hiatus for the most part across the board, right across the industry, and then we had. 2022 was really the first year for me. When I look back, it was like Mando was successful in 2021, but for me, Star Wars television still felt a little bit unproven. Like that was like lightning in a bottle, and it was really going to be. This was going to be the year that we were going to see, can these other shows stand on their own legs, right? Can they escape this shadow? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but this pillar that was suddenly the Mandalorian and all the hype that came with it, right? How are these shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor and Tales of the Jedi and some of these other ones, right? What's Star Wars television going to look like outside of the very successful The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett? All right, we just talked about that one as well.
And how are we going to handle that without movies?
Yeah,
I think right in that constant challenge between that.
No, that's exactly right. Especially given that as controversial as the decision was made, Bob Iger was kind of all in on Disney Plus. Now, some of that again was the COVID piece and production costs and state of the industry. A couple of other things factored into it, but this was going to be the future of Star Wars, and so I don't want to say it was a massive success and there were no flaws, but I mean wildly successful in my opinion. We had lots of things to talk about, a lot of great shows, a lot of great moments, seeing things that we'd always thought about growing up watching Star Wars, finally getting to realize that, seeing it, in reality on screen, whether even if it wasn't the big screen. Being able to just watch that on live action was pretty special.
Absolutely.
So those are as far as like the ton of stuff that came out. There was a lot of books. We were coming into phase 2 of the High Republic. Wasn't sure how that was going to be. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Although I know we have not done a whole lot of coverage there around that. Video games still felt kind of thin.
We had a lot of expectations last year with video games, and they just didn't pan out.
Yeah, Hunters was one that I was looking forward to.
Yeah, Hunters ?
Yep. And we'll talk about what came out here in just a little bit as well. It was also the return of Dark Horse Comics, which I thought was pretty exciting because, that was, for those of us that grew up in the Legends era, that was where you went for Star Wars Legends comics, and there was some really great stories. And I mean, all that KOTOR stuff we were talking about, there's tons and tons of that stuff here that was all done. And, I really enjoyed the writers, and I enjoyed all the art that they did, the stories from Dark Horse, and just being able to have them come back into the fold, I think was, I don't know, serendipitous, I guess, maybe to some extent. So it was great.
Actually, while I was I had some just killing time before the show started. I was actually reading issue 1 of the High Republic Adventures, which I hadn't read yet. I was a little bit behind.
Mm.
And I was sending you a bunch of screenshots in text. You probably ignored it because it was all about Maz Kanata and her Dexy
If she's
jet.
in it, I don't want any part of that. I'm just
her
telling you now.
Dexy jet.
Oh,
That's what she calls Dexter Jetster. Yeah.
yeah. Does she really?
Mhm.
Are you being serious?
I'm dead serious.
Jonesy, don't
I
do
sent
this
you
'cause
a,
I'm not.
I
all
sent
right.
you a picture just to make sure you could actually see it.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait. Oh yes, I can. I can wait for that.
Yeah, but it was actually a really cool story. I mean, and I
Okay.
love the colors and the art and everything. And High Republic Adventures really showed in the past it could really be a good story on the IDW front with Daniel Jose Older. But picking right up where they left off and following Sav Maligan. So a pretty interesting character, and going to get a lot of pirate Maz.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we'll talk about the media here in a second, but the other two big events, and you mentioned Star Cruiser, right?
Yeah,
As being
Galactic
one
Star
of them.
Cruiser.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Didn't we? Wait, what was it? The new Galaxy's Edge, that new ride, didn't that launch at the beginning of the year?
I think that was 2021 still.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Rise of the Resistance.
I know it was delayed, but I just wasn't sure if it bled into 2022 or not.
No, yeah, that opened I think in 2021.
Okay. And then of course we had Celebration, which, we had a chance to be on stage again, which was awesome. Thank you, Lucasfilm and Disney and Pop and Reed Pop, everybody else.
Oh, and Claudia Gray. Yeah,
Claudia, I was going to say, but thank you mostly to Claudia Gray and the folks over at Tarkin's Top Shelf.
absolutely.
So Mark and Becca for, us tag teaming with them on doing that interview. It's a great interview that I was watching today. I was making clips, doing some stuff together, putting some stuff together, and had a chance to watch a little bit of it. And it's just really good to kind of hear, arguably, in my opinion, the best, or at least one of the best authors in Star Wars right now, and just sitting down talking about her book and how it came to be, which was awesome. So
I just love hearing all the passion from her. It was like when we had Adam Christopher on too, right? It was just so cool to just hear it through their own words and dispel thoughts and beliefs you thought you had, and get their perspective on it, and how really open-minded they are. Like the thing I got from both Adam Christopher and from Claudia Gray was just how open to interpretation they allow their work to be.
Yeah.
They don't get super, gritty and all of it, because that's what they enjoy as well. So it was really cool to have that perspective from them. That was just really neat, and otherwise we wouldn't have had some of those opportunities.
Yep. Okay, well, I think, I don't know, that kind of sums up my thoughts on 2022. Plenty of content, more than we could really get at. And, by all accounts, it looks like it's going to be just at least as busy going into 2023. So we'll see if that's going to pan out. Is that footage available? Yes, it is available. I thought we put that on Patreon. Did we not?
I'm pretty sure we put it on Patreon.
Yeah. I think I know somebody you can talk to about that. But yeah, Steph, if you want to go find it, head out to Patreon.
Talk to Lauren.
Yeah, go talk to Lauren. Good one.
Hey, if you're not here, you get all the action items.
Yeah, right.
That's how it rolls.
That's how it rolls. You missed the meeting, you get all the action items. Okay, well, let's.
Yeah, where do you want to start?
I don't know.
Little 2022 look back here. Where do you want to
Well,
start?
why don't we? Let's just kind of wax Celebration just very quickly against it. We're already talking about it, but what were the standout moments for you there?
Well, I mean, first is always meeting up with some of our listeners. I mean,
Sure.
And the folks that came out to the panel with Claudia Gray and with Target's Top Shelf was really amazing. Getting to meet people over at the brewery was just so cool. Being able to bump into people, Gus with Try to the Force, getting to meet him, getting to meet people in general,
Mm-hmm.
the Star Wars stuff guys. I mean, gosh, the list goes on and on about the amazing people that you run into that you only get to see at this event. It's about the only time that everybody's in the same place at the same time, because we're all from different parts of the country. And
Yeah.
so that's always the biggest takeaway from it. I mean, the overall panels in the reveals and everything didn't feel as grandiose as they did back in 2019. But of course, we had Clone Wars, and we had
A movie.
a movie,
Right,
a Mandalorian. I mean, we had a bunch of really big ticket items, right?
Yeah.
And so we didn't have as much of that this time around, but it was more the personal side of things that I took away from it this time around. That was just so much fun. Plus, I got to see a bloody half dead Ewok, cosplay, and
Oh.
that makes life worth living. Not gonna lie.
Okay. Yeah, no, I echo all of that except the bloody Ewok. But for the most part, I think he nailed everything. It was very. This one felt more personable than
Mhm.
2019, if that's really a a good characterization of the event itself. There, yes, we got to be on stage, which is awesome. Yes, we got to meet Claudia Gray. We've already talked about that. But to your point, like it was a COVID thing, right? We were coming off COVID. There was,
Oh, a resurgence in COVID.
yeah, exactly. Right at the time, we had a mask up while we are there, which wasn't a big deal, but just being able to have that physical interaction and talking about Star Wars again with people, having not been able to do that for the better part of 2 years, was just a very surreal kind of experience. And then to kind of like you said, being able to do that with people that support our show, which is great. Meeting some of the other authors. I mean, that's how we met Adam Christopher and kind of got to sit down and sit in line with him and just talk about stuff before we, asked him if he'd want to come on the show.
A fire alarm with Cavan Scott.
Yeah, me stalking Cavan Scott the entire celebration event. I mean, that's a
where are you going to get memories like that?
Yeah, I mean, the restraining order is still in effect, but
yeah, you framed it. Yeah, it's fine.
I've got 5 more years on that.
Only 5? Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, you got 1 down.
And then and I don't want to single anybody out, but I'm going to and I only say this because he was one of the very first people that came in and started supporting The Basement. And now he supports this show. He's a Patreon member. So J.R. Eaton is, I consider him a good friend of mine, but that was just really special to meet somebody that had been following me on that show, super passionate about a lot of the same things that I am outside of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But, sitting down, eating lunch with him was just a really cool experience, even though I don't think I've ever really told him in that word. So JR, if you're listening, man, thanks so much for doing that. That meant a lot to me personally, and just one of the highlights for me at Celebration.
Well, and I'm thinking about the people that met up with this, I think about the panels that we had, like the creator-led panels. So people like us, in effect, right? But the diversity of the panels that we had, the different discussion we had. I mean, we had photography, we had women, people of color, all of these different topics that were just so intermingled and just fantastic. I mean, Gus and the Triad guys from representing Puerto Rico. I mean, there's just so many different perspectives on it, all coming into one place. And it wasn't just one here and there. It was constant. Like there was always something really cool to go check out.
Yeah.
Those were some of the coolest rooms to be around. I know you basically camped out, I think, all day there one day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Saturday, I think I was just jumping back and forth in that one hall, literally going across the way to the next show just to see everybody. Pink Milk was out there.
Yeah. I mean, just so many. I mean, it was just constant. And it was really cool the way that they picked all the panelists this time around. It was really good. I know there's always a lot of hurt feelings and uncertainty around what the process goes. But when you look at the final product of what they put out there, hard to argue it wasn't great.
Yeah. No, I think they did a good job, and I'm trying to be as objective, knowing that I'm probably part of the problem, but it was a good display of a variety of shows, to your point. So okay,
are you part of the problem, or you part of the solution, Albert?
So I'm part of the sorry, you're right. Half full. I'm part of the solution. Okay, so and then let's talk about video games. Let's just get the negative out of the way.
Sure. All right, we're done. Next.
All right, next topic. It was dismal. Like, I don't know what I expect these days, but growing up, right, with all the NES releases and Super Nintendo releases, and then we had PlayStation stuff, and I mean, again, I understand it was a different time. We had Lucas Arts cranking out a lot of the stuff, and I think that's part of in reality, when they got rid of that division, now it's just third parties, and the passion projects maybe don't come up, or it's probably a harder sell to go to these other third party companies and say, look, we should be doing this Star Wars game because whatever. Maybe it is a part of the canon piece too. Right? Most of what they released, but they have to, right? Everything that gets released is canon. So do you think that factors into it at all? Because if you think about it, then they've got to bring in the storyboard, and they got to make sure everything stays on the rails. And back in Legends days, it was like, whatever, Masters of Terrascasi, Luke Skywalker fighting, game versus game. Let's do it. Right. I mean, I don't think they batted an eye at that stuff maybe as much as they do today.
Yeah, but we still had things like, didn't we get the Lego Skywalker saga as well? I don't know if you can call that new necessarily.
Yeah, I think I had it in there. That was
somehow
good,
it got dropped in the notes. That was good. I mean, and you liked Legacy of the Sith, right? The SWTOR expansion.
The expansion pack, yeah.
I think the biggest
Darth Malgus is alive. Darth Malgus is alive. That's all. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think the biggest disappointment is Hunters, though, because it was supposed to just be this action game. And we talk about canon. That was when I'm like, nah, this doesn't have to be canon at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's an arena fighting game. Right. It's supposed to be, no holds barred. It's supposed to be wild and crazy and things that you don't think about in the canon. You're just out there having fun with great characters and great action, right? And it looked like it was getting close to release, and then it didn't. They had a demo of it, and then it disappeared, and now it's just silent.
Yeah.
So we expect to get it in 2023, but at this rate, who really knows where it's at in the development cycle? I mean, it seems like it's being retooled quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so that's disappointing. So I mean, to say that the landscape for games was awful, maybe is a bit that's a bit overreactive on my part. I think it's more of that it was a disappointing slate of releases for video games. And again, video games take a long time to develop. We know we're getting what was expected to be a really great game next year with Jedi Survivor, but this year was just quiet. And the ones that we got were kind of really pretty limited on who's interested in those. Maybe Lego Star Wars appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But like SWTOR is still it's a fairly niche group, popular, but still a fairly niche group. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. I think it's gotten to that point now. Like, if it's not a, everybody, or, every 1 out of 5 people is playing this thing, or 1 out of 10. These are the people that are like me, that have been just holding it on, for one reason or another. There's all these weird reasons that people hold on to the game too, whether it's story or, the characters they develop. Most of it is friendships, to be honest. It's just that.
Yeah.
I mean, you played MMOs, right? You establish these friendships. You get to know these people. Yeah, they become your best friends. You spend so much time with them. You know their family. The kids come in and interrupt. I mean, it's just like, and then, you step away from these types of games and you realize, like, wow, I mean, yeah, I've got real life friends, but these are like real life friends. And I've drew blood with them. Not literally, but, we've
Right.
taken down some bosses. So I think
That's right.
a lot of it is the social aspect in Star Wars, The Old Republic these days, more than just the game mechanics or the expansion packs, that sort of thing.
Right.
And we'll talk about now. That said, we're looking at the future, 2023 and beyond. There were a lot of games that were announced or at least talked about this year, and it kind of came at the very end of the year. We'll get into like the Respawn stuff and all that, but for the most part, you're right. I mean, there were other games too that were just kind of already there. Like Squadrons got a lot of love, even though it came out the year before. It was given away just last month, I think, at some point right around Black Friday. I think they gave it away. They were giving the dang game away.
Yeah, there were a lot of remaster, re-release type things going on, of course.
Yep.
For classic content that people absolutely love, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah, I mean, the Galaxy Heroes is still going on, right?
Sure,
People
yeah.
are still playing Battlefront 2. So I mean,
Well,
there are
and I know
Star Wars games.
Our friend over at Rebel Base Card loves the Star Wars Card Trader app as well. I mean, I think you could probably still consider that a mobile game, mobile collector type of thing, but people really enjoy that, and apparently one of the latest updates is really cool. And for people who are into card collecting, it's a really great hobby to have.
Yep. Okay, well, let's move to novels. And I don't know if we want to just break this up into the High Republic stuff, or do you want to just talk about the non-High Republic stuff? But
let's do non-High Republic first.
Okay, well, that's a pretty quick release here. So we had
what were some of our highlights, maybe?
Well, let me just read them: Queen's Hope, Brotherhood, Padawan, Shadow of the Sith, and Princess and the Scoundrel. And we won't read all the other ones, but it's a pretty short list. For me, the highlight, without a shadow of a doubt, was Shadow of the Sith. And I say that even though, yes, I know we had Adam on for the interview, but that book was such a breath of fresh air, and it really helped me to make peace with that transition from The Last Jedi over to the Rise of Skywalker, and even some of what was laid down in The Force Awakens to The Rise of Skywalker. It really kind of helped bridge all of that. And if you hadn't had a chance to go listen to the interview or a breakdown of the book, please do so. And by God, go read the book if you've not had a chance to read it. But I mean, hands down, that was, for me, out of these, that was the best one. Although I would say Brotherhood was pretty close. It was a pretty good read. I enjoyed that a lot as well. But what about you?
Yeah, A Shadow of the Sith was fantastic. I liked Brotherhood a lot too. And of course, we were talking with Lauren last night after the show. We were talking about what we were going to do, and she loved Padawan a lot.
Yeah.
And so kind of throwing that one in her on her behalf as well. But, a strong book slate. I didn't read Queen's Hope or Princess and the Scoundrel. Just kind of not my wheelhouse, but yeah, I mean, when I look at it though, I mean, we had more than just these for non-High Republic, but those were the reissues of the Legends materials.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we'd count those or not.
No, I mean, I don't think we count them in terms of, yeah, I mean, they've already been released, but I think it's worth noting that I love the fact that they're giving this. We didn't have this 2 years ago, right? We didn't even have it in 2020. Well, we had it in 2021, But prior to that, no, I don't think anybody ever saw this coming. And then much less, I'm surprised that they're still continuing to do it. Right. I mean, I
Yeah, it's
get they're,
steady.
yeah, it's a steady release and I get they're making more money on money they've already made essentially. But I mean, they're giving you some pretty quality art on those things. They're good quality books, some of the best titles. I mean, they're not just going and picking, well, I won't name any names of books because people will get mad, but they're picking some of the better legends stories
Mhm.
that are out there. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good on them. It's certainly giving people the opportunity to get caught up, or at least dip their toe in the old legend stuff there.
Yeah, and I know people are really the Rogue Squadron material in particular. I mean, I know some of the folks have pinged us on Patreon and on Discord and asking us for things that's their series. They love it, and so when they get past that, like, what else do we need to read? Whether it's
Hmm.
Legends or canon or whatever. But so it is cool. I mean, it's cool that other people get introduced to some of those stories because I think there is a lot of truth in canon, right? A lot of truth in myths and things like that. You can bring forward in legends, and I think Rogue Squadron is a really ripe area to bring some of that forward where the characters, the character positioning might change a little bit, but the overall vibe of all of that is really exciting. And of course, Patty Jenkins' movie that will come eventually really hopes to build on that legacy. I hope
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point. Okay, so those are the non High Republic. So essentially, we had
it was a big
Phase
High Republic
One.
here.
Yeah, so the High Republic, Phase One versus Phase Two, and this is not even fair, I think, because Phase Two, I'm still feeling out Phase Two, and I think I speak for a lot of people. I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's bad. I know we've been very quiet, like deathly quiet, around Phase Two, and the way I would summarize this without because I want to make sure and give it its attention and do next year with Lauren and all that, right? The way I would categorize Phase Two is it's similar to Phase One in that I feel like I'm having to get vested in new characters all over again.
it's a lot.
And
Yeah,
we are the landscape is a little different, even though we are only 150 years prior to the beginning of Phase Two or Phase One. But they're not bad reads. In fact, there are a couple books that I feel like are gems already that have come out. But when I compare that, like again, to just since we're just talking about what came out in 2022, I think the end of Phase One, or sorry, yeah, the end of Phase One, Wave Three,
Wave 3. Yeah,
yep, is like, I
you
mean,
expect that to be
yeah.
the coup de was it the coup de grace, or is that what it's
Well,
called?
that's like the death kill, the death blow, I guess. But
Oh well, but
I
just
guess
saying,
it's all
kind
about
of fitting.
perspective, right?
I mean, they killed off Buriaka.
Yeah, no, they didn't. Stop it! You're spreading those rumors again. He's alive. He's alive, and he's been seen in. No, okay, well, I won't say that. But
Yeah. Real quick, here's what we got for Phase 1: Mission to Disaster, Fallen Star, Midnight Horizon, Battle for Starlight, and then we had a bunch of comic material too with High Republic, Eye of the Storm, Trail of Shadows, stuff like
hmm
that.
hmm
Which of those really stood out for you? Like when you think about Wave 3, like is it all Fallen Star, or do you have anything else in there
no,
that really
I
spoke to
mean,
you?
I loved Fallen Star, but it was Midnight Horizon.
Yeah. Well, and then Jedi's End for the comics too. With your girl going crazy. Avar Chris at the end there.
Yeah. Oh, right, right. Yeah, where she just about crosses over into the dark side, kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of great content. But
Spoilers.
yeah, but I'm with you though. Midnight Horizon, probably my favorite of the bunch. I mean, really, really, really good.
Yeah, I
Really
think they
good.
were. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, I was done.
Well, I was gonna say, so yeah, Midnight Horizon definitely the best of the bunch for me. But I did enjoy Mission to Disaster, and I enjoyed the Fallen Star. Like I enjoyed
Yeah.
Mission to Disaster way more than I thought it was going to be honest.
It was a
Um,
really, really solid wave from like top to bottom.
yes.
I mean, there were no misses. And actually this started with wave two that it didn't feel like there was only kind of one miss in there, I think. But it was really, you just felt it getting stronger and building. It found its
Mhm.
footing. The authors had found their rhythm with all of it. And everything was coming together, and all of the pieces, even the complications of it between the different materials, all just kind of fit and worked. And so it was really cool to see all that come together. Where at the end of it, you're like, why are we going in the past? Well, let's keep
Exactly.
going. We just now we're
Well,
invested, right? Now we're
yeah.
ready, and we're gonna stop.
Yeah, and that's, not to again, I want to make sure that I'm clear that this is not so it's more nuance in this. But that is one of my problems that I think I've had with Phase 2 is like I loved Phase 1 so much that
Mhm.
the idea that I'm going to have to now wait to go back to those characters, it's like really made it difficult for me to get vested in these new characters because I'm like, man, there's so many things that are unresolved.
It's a huge investment to start over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge ask of the audience. I mean, it was. I'll go on record saying this. I think it was a big risk
It was.
for us to do this and to do it without any characters that we had any kind of familiarity with.
Mm-hmm.
Yoda, not around as usual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though Yoda has his own comic, not the same.
I mean, there's like the Blade of Bordata, and there's some other characters that are in here, right? And I get it. I mean, I don't know if this was intentional. I'm sure it was. It was one of the many reasons they did this, but to mirror the way they released the original movies, right? We got the middle section. They went back and did the prequels. But to your point, like when we went back and did the prequels, so they said we are going to tell the story of Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. It's a monumental character, right? And I'm already like, yeah, let's do it. And so far in phase 2, I don't know that there's that character, right? Because we're so far back. The only ones that are even around like that are, like you said, Yoda or, Blade of Bordata or whoever it is. But it's not the same, right?
Well, they didn't really tell you what we were doing in the past either. They wanted to be super secretive about it. I mean, Star Wars fans are intelligent for the most part, right? And so,
yeah, I mean, no, but yeah, go ahead.
Whatever. We have the smartest fans. I know that for a fact. But I mean, they didn't really give you a whole lot to work with. So when you came into, and again, that goes back to that huge ask to get people to start all over again, man, that's a tough one because, I mean, you really do have to start over when you're learning all these characters and you have to, if you remember Light of the Jedi, I remember our conversation about it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. Yeah, it's kind of exciting, but yeah, it's a little bit slow. I just don't know what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of felt like I was always lost. I have felt that way with phase 2 because that's just the start of an era, right?
Yeah.
All these new characters, who are they? Who's going to stick around? Who's not? How do they all fit? What are all the names? There's so many of them. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? And things are starting to get a little bit clearer as we get through the rest of the first wave. So real quick, maybe we'll talk a little bit about phase 2 real quick. So we have Quest for the Hidden City, Path of Deceit, Convergence, and then we've got the second volume of the High Republic comics. Lauren is going absolutely bonkers with excitement over Quest for the Hidden City.
Yeah, George, man.
Yeah, and I'm listening to Battle of Jeddah right now, which comes out at the beginning of January, and I'm really liking that too.
Nice.
And yeah, so I think as we get comfortable with some of the characters and some of those storylines mature a little bit, and you start to get some of the characters like, aha, that's who they are, that's their motivation, this is where it's going, I think, and then you kind of get into the shakeups and all of that.
Yeah.
End of wave 1, we'll start to see that settle down, that anxiety of the change. And we'll see how wave 2's really got to deliver, though, to really hook you. And I think that's what we had with wave 2 before, is we had some really great content that just absolutely hooked us.
I think it has to do two things. One, it has to hook you. I'd agree 100%. The other thing for me is I feel like at some point I'm going to need to understand why we came back in the past. And right. I don't think it's going to be a huge secret. I mean, like, it was a very deliberate decision, and they've told us
answers really quick.
Yeah. So I mean, we're going to find out, right? So
Battle of Jeddah. That's all you need to know.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't listened to that yet. So,
yep.
All right. And that's fine. That makes sense. Like, I don't think they could go into wave 3 and still be like dangling this carrot of like, this is why we did this, and we're going to tie it all together in that last wave. It has to happen in wave 2, in my opinion. But
no, I agree with you. I think not to kind of make it a High Republic show, but I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you have to be able to say, you have to keep progressing the story. You can't just keep dangling it out there and it's just out of reach and the Jedi are dumb and it's Jedi bashing. Which I got to be honest, early on in this wave, it felt a little Jedi bashing again. Right? A lot of different, but I know what they're trying to do. Just don't know how well it's working in some areas. And then sometimes it works really well. And so anyway, but big year for High Republic.
What's that?
A big year for High Republic, though, in general.
It was.
First half of the year really closed out strong with phase 1.
Yeah.
Phase 2, I really feel like we're picking up momentum going into 23.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited. I'm a little more excited now than I was even just a month or more ago about where phase 2 is going with High Republic, to see what it is that we're going to get next.
Yeah. And again, I want to be clear. I don't want to discourage anybody from listening to phase 2. That's not what we're trying to do here.
This goes with the territory. I mean,
yeah. And at the same time, I mean, I think you and I both have pretty high expectations because of how much we loved and enjoyed phase 1. That, we're going to make that natural comparison. And is it of the same caliber? No, I mean, it's not. Is it still enjoyable? Absolutely it is. I think it's just to be determined as far as like what that big payoff is going to be. And it all ties together. So I think it will, I'm pretty confident that by the time we get to wave 3, we're going to be like, oh yeah, this is much ado about nothing, and maybe it had a rocky start, but they picked it up and they were able to stick the landing before we get into phase 3.
Yeah, and it's tough when you switch the whole author landscape too. I mean, people that we felt like we had relationships with of sorts.
Yeah,
with these
no, like
authors because they were so
Gavin
front and
doesn't call
center.
me anymore. So
It
all right.
changes, change is tough. I mean, and so we're kind of going through the change curve. But we're doing it together. We're going to come out all right. We're going to be good.
All right. Good
Everything's
pep
fine
talk.
here.
Good pep talk. Okay, let's talk about how about comics. You want to talk about comics?
Good.
Okay, thumbs up.
No, yeah. No, comics were pretty good. The end of wave 3 for phase 1, absolutely killer. I mean, we got Eye of the Storm. Trail of Shadows was a little bit different. There were some moments I really liked and all of that. We got the first appearance of Leveler, of course.
Yeah.
The Jedi's End arc, like the second half of the High Republic flagship comic, absolutely killer.
Yeah, that ended really well.
Absolutely killer. One of the best comics I think I read all the year, actually, to be honest with you. Hey everyone, it's Jonesy. We hope you've enjoyed this preview of the Patreon episode. If you'd like to listen to the episode in full, we invite you to head over to cantinacast.com/Patreon. Access to this episode begins at the $2 After Dark tier. If you're interested in joining a future Patreon episode, we encourage you to check out our Now Part of the Tribe and Delusions of Grandeur tiers. You can find all the details at cantinacast.com/Patreon. On behalf of Albert and myself, thank you all for your continued support, and may the Force be with you.